Ever feel like money is this like invisible hurdle in your relationship? You know, you love each other to the moon and back, but then bam, that shared credit card statement.
Okay.
Today we're diving deep into financial foundations, a guide to financial planning for couples. Think of this deep dive as like our cheat sheet to having it all. Love, Andy, financial harmony.
What I find so fascinating about this guide is how it just dives right into the why of it all.
Mhm.
Like it doesn't just assume every couple needs to become like financial gurus or something. It really highlights those real life benefits of getting on the same page financially.
Right, right. It's not just about spreadsheets and budgets, is it? It's more about aligning on those big dreams together.
100%. Financial Foundations really digs into how aligning on your financial goals can impact everything, like your daily stress levels,
Mm-hmm.
to actually achieving those big dreams. Like, are we talking buying a house together,
Mm-hmm.
early retirement,
I love that.
maybe traveling the world?
Okay, so less about penny pinching, more about figuring out that dream life together. But, okay, how do you even start that conversation? It can be so intimidating to bring up the M word, especially, early on in a relationship.
It totally can. And I think that's why this guy dedicates a whole section to just that, having the talk in a way that feels safe and productive for both partners. It even breaks it down into like a four-step process.
Oh, interesting.
Starting with like step one is simply acknowledging that, hey, this can be kind of an awkward conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And then it gives you some tips to kind of ease into it.
I love that because let's be real, no one wants to feel like they're like on trial for their spending habits on like date number 3.
Exactly. It's about creating that safe space for honesty and vulnerability, right?
The guide really emphasizes understanding each other's financial backgrounds as like step one. Like, where did each of you learn about money growing up? Were there any past experiences that might be like subconsciously influencing your views now? Oh, that's huge because we all bring our own money baggage to the table,
Yep.
right?
Do.
And speaking of baggage, like the guy doesn't shy away from those potentially trickier topics, does it? Like debt, for example.
Not at all. In fact, it tackles it head on.
Okay.
It really encourages couples to be open and honest about it. And most importantly, create a plan for managing that debt together, like as a team.
Hmm.
So instead of it being this thing that's like swept under the rug, it becomes this shared challenge to overcome.
That makes a lot of sense. Now I know a lot of couples they kind of get tripped up on the whole joint versus separate accounts thing. Does the guide offer any advice on that?
Yeah, what I really appreciate about it is that it doesn't preach one right way to do things.
Okay, good.
It really dives into the pros and cons of each approach.
Yeah.
Like, are we talking joint accounts, separate accounts, maybe even like a hybrid model?
Oh, interesting.
Because, what works for one couple might feel totally stifling for another.
So true. There's no one size fits all, right, when it comes to relationships or finances.
Right.
But I imagine there are some common financial challenges that most couples kind of face at some point,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
we could be talking things like career changes, having kids. I mean, these are major life events
Huge.
that can really impact your income and your expenses.
For sure.
And the guide, talks about those too.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just about managing your money day to day, but also planning for the future and those big life transitions as well.
100%. The guide emphasizes the importance of being proactive,
Yeah.
having those open and honest conversations so that you're both on the same page when those big decisions need to be made.
It's almost like that whole hope for the best, prepare for the worst kind of mentality, right?
Right.
But in a financial sense.
Exactly. Because when you're prepared for those big life transitions, I mean, it can make all the difference in, minimizing stress and maximizing your chances of coming out stronger on the other side
Yeah.
as a couple.
So it sounds like a recurring theme here is communication, communication, communication. You can't really plan for a future together if you're not on the same page about what that future looks like, right? Or even like how W to get there.
You hit the nail on the head.
Mhm.
And the guide really, really highlights how essential it is for couples to have those regular financial check-ins,
Okay.
to keep the conversation about money flowing. Maybe this is a monthly sit down, maybe it's just a quick chat about any upcoming expenses or financial goals.
Like a financial state of the union.
Exactly. It's about making those conversations a regular part of your relationship rather than this big scary thing that you avoid at all costs.
Right.
And while communication is key, I think one of the valuable parts of this guide is its emphasis on setting shared financial goals.
Okay, so less I want to retire early and more we want to retire early.
Precisely. It's about creating that shared vision for your financial future as a couple. And the guide takes it a step further by really encouraging couples to set what are called SMART goals.
Oh, I've heard of SMART goals,
Yeah.
but refresh my memory. What makes them so smart?
So a SMART goal is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Oh,
So instead of just saying, we want to save more money, a SMART goal would be more like, we will save $5,000 for a down payment on a house within the next 2 years.
okay. So it's about getting really clear on what you want, how much it's going to cost, and when you actually want to achieve it. I can see how that would make a huge difference in actually making it happen.
Absolutely. When you have that clarity, it's like having a roadmap to your goals.
Yeah.
And it can be incredibly motivating to actually track your progress along the way.
So we've got the goal setting down, but okay, how do you actually get thee there? Does the guide offer any like practical budgeting advice, like how to track your spending and all that jazz?
It does, yeah. It actually encourages couples to try out like different budgeting
Yeah.
methods to see like what works best for them. So for some couples, it might be the 50-30-20 method,
Right.
where 50% of your income goes to like your needs,
Yeah.
30% towards like, your wants, and then 20% towards savings and debt repayment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for other couples, it might be something more like the envelope system,
Right.
where you're allocating, cash to different spending categories each month.
It's like finding the right financial outfit,
Yeah.
right? What looks great on one person might not work for another.
Exactly. Exactly. And the guide stresses that budgeting shouldn't be about deprivation.
Right.
It's more about just being intentional with your money
Hmm.
and making sure that your spending kind of aligns with your values as a couple.
Right. So if travel is a big one for you, maybe you cut back on like restaurant meals to afford that trip to Italy or something.
That's the idea. It's about making those conscious choices.
Mhm.
And speaking of choices, the guide reminds us that we often have like way more control over our expenses than we think.
Okay, so it's not just about like sticking to a strict budget, but like actually finding creative ways to reduce your spending where you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So we could be talking negotiating lower rates on your bills,
Okay.
finding like free or low cost entertainment options,
Yeah.
maybe even, taking on a side hustle to kind of boost your income.
Oh, I like that.
Like those small changes can make a really big impact over time.
I love that. Every little bit helps, right? It's like that saying, take care of the pennies and the pounds will take care of themselves.
Exactly. And speaking of taking care of things, even with the best budgeting and saving strategies in the world, sometimes those unexpected expenses they pop up.
Yeah. Oh, tell me about it. My car decided to like totally have a meltdown last month. Definitely not in the budget.
And that's exactly why the guide emphasizes the importance of having an emergency fund.
Okay, so this is more than just having like a little cash stash under the mattress.
Ideally, yeah. The
Yeah.
the guide recommends having 3 to 6 months worth of like living expenses saved up.
Yeah.
That way, if you lose your job or you have a medical emergency or you get hit with some unexpected car repair, like you're prepared.
That peace of mind alone would be like worth it. But building that kind of like cushion takes time, right?
Right.
Especially if you're starting from scratch.
It does. But even setting aside a small amount each month can really make a big difference.
Right.
It's about, building those positive financial habits.
And speaking of the like long game, the guide touches on retirement too, right?
It does. It does. And, it acknowledges that retirement might feel like ages away for some people, but it stresses that it's never too early to start planning.
Especially since you want those retirement funds to have like time to simmer and grow.
Yeah, exactly. Compound interest is your best friend when it
Mm.
comes to long-term savings.
For sure.
And the guide kind of breaks retirement planning down into like these bite-sized steps.
Yeah.
And it begins with like envisioning your ideal retirement.
Okay.
So, are you picturing yourselves traveling the world, pursuing hobbies,
Yeah.
spending more quality time with like loved ones.
Oh, I like this.
Yeah,
It's way more fun to think about like sipping cocktails on a beach somewhere than it is to think about, like actual retirement accounts and stuff.
exactly. The guide encourages couples to dream big, right?
Yeah.
And then work backward, figuring out, okay,
Mm.
how much do we need to save?
Yeah.
What types of investments will actually like support these goals?
So it's not just about like crunching numbers, it's about like aligning your financial goals with your dreams for the future, which I love. We've talked about a lot of the like practical aspects of financial planning, but we can't forget about the emotional side of it all, right?
Right?
Which, let's be honest, can sometimes be the trickier part.
Yeah,
Did the guide cover that at all?
it does. Yeah. Yeah, there's actually a whole section dedicated to like navigating the emotional side of money.
Which, let's be honest, can sometimes be the trickier part. Like, we can all relate to those moments when a simple conversation about, spending just like snowballs into this like full-blown argument.
Totally. And the guide acknowledges that, like it even points out some common um, financial conflict areas for couples.
Okay.
Like we're talking things like, um, differing risk tolerances, spending habits, even just how each person was like taught to think about money growing up.
Oh, that's huge. Like, if someone grew up with like a scarcity mindset around money,
Mm.
that's going to impact how they approach finances in a relationship, even like subconsciously.
For sure.
Yeah.
And the guide digs into, some practical strategies for handling those disagreements,
Yeah.
constructively.
Okay.
For example, it really emphasizes using like I statements instead of like blaming language.
Okay, so instead of saying you always spend too much, it's more like I feel anxious when we overspend because.
Exactly. You got it. It's about shifting the focus from like blame
Hmm.
to understanding and finding like solutions together as a team.
That makes a lot of sense because it's not about being like right or wrong.
Right.
It's more about finding like a way forward that works for both partners. Huh.
Precisely. And the guide reminds us that financial planning, it's not like just about crunching numbers.
Right.
It's about strengthening your bond as a couple. It's
Hmm.
about teamwork, open communication, and ultimately like building that future that you both envision together.
Yes. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. I mean, we're talking everything from like communication and goal setting to budgeting, managing debt, and even like navigating those sometimes choppy emotional waters. If you had to pick just one episode of Financial Foundations for our listeners to start with, which one would it be and why?
Ooh, that's a tough one. You know, I, I think I would probably go with episode 2, starting the conversation.
Okay, why that one in particular?
It really lays such an important foundation for everything else. And
Okay.
it provides those practical tips for having those initial conversations about money.
Right.
Like, breaking the ice in a way that feels safe
Hmm.
and productive.
Uh-huh.
And it also encourages couples to kind of uncover those often hidden money scripts that they've developed over the years.
All those like unconscious beliefs and habits that we've kind of picked up about money over time.
Exactly. And once you understand your own money story and your partner's, it becomes so much easier to kind of find that common ground,
Yeah.
and build a financial plan that truly reflects like your shared values and goals.
It's like they say, you can't know where you're going until you know where you've been.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And sometimes discovering those money stories, it can even be like a fun trip down memory lane for couples.
Oh, absolutely. It can bring to light some like funny quirks and like aha moments. For instance, my first investment was actually buying a pack of gum and trying to like sell it piece by piece for a profit back in like elementary school.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
We knew we had a budding entrepreneur on our hands.
Some things never change, I guess.
Yeah.
But speaking of possibilities, like what I appreciate about financial foundations is that it's not just about like preventing financial disaster.
Right.
It's more about creating a life of like abundance and joy together.
100%. It's about leveraging your finances
Yeah.
as a tool to design the life that you truly want, both individually and as a couple.
Yeah.
Whether it's funding that dream trip,
Yeah.
pursuing a passion project, or even just having the financial freedom to spend more quality time with your loved ones.
That to me is like true wealth. And it's not necessarily tied to like how much you earn. It's more about like the choices that you make with the money you have.
Beautifully put. It's about aligning your spending with your values
Mm.
and making like those conscious decisions that support your overall well-being as a couple.
And for every couple, that's going to look a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's choosing to like invest in experiences rather than material possessions,
All
or
right.
maybe it's prioritizing, early retirement
Yeah.
over like having a bigger house.
Exactly. Ultimately, it's about like defining what wealth means to you as a couple,
Yeah.
and then creating a financial plan that supports those shared dreams and aspirations.
And that, my friends, wraps up our deep dive into Financial Foundations, a guide to financial planning for couples. It's not just about the dollars and cents, it's about building a life you love with the person you love. As you go about your day, here's a final thought to ponder together. What one financial goal, if you achieved it as a couple, would spark the most joy? Think about it, talk about it, and then take those first steps, no matter how small, to turn that shared dream into a reality. Until next time, happy planning.